everyone, and welcome to Walking Through the Bible. Have you ever seen someone so desperate to get something done or to stop something from getting done that they will try anything possible to succeed? Sanballat of Samaria really didn't want this Jerusalem wall completed. He tried to taunt the Jews, he tried to attack the Jews, and in the last lesson he tried to lure Nehemiah away from the work so that they could kill him, thus demoralizing the Jews who they thought would abandon this work on the wall. We'll get Nehemiah's response shortly, but even after Nehemiah's response, Sanballat would not be done. Let's conclude these events by closing out our discussion of chapter 6. So if you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Nehemiah chapter 6. We're going to be reading from verses 8 to 19. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Nehemiah chapter 6, beginning at verse 8. Then I sent to him, saying, No such things, as you say, are being done, but you invent them in your own heart. For they were trying to make us afraid, saying, Their hands will be weakened in the work, and it will not be done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. Afterward I came to the house of Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabel, who was a secret informer, and he said, Let us meet together in the house of God within the temple, and let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. Indeed, at night they will come to kill you. And I said, Should such a man as I flee? And who is there such as I who would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. Then I perceived that God had not sent him at all, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. For this reason he was hired, that I should be afraid and act that way in sin, so that they might have cause for an evil report, that they might reproach me. My God, remember Tobiah and Sanballat according to these their works, and the prophetess Noaida, and the rest of the prophets who would have made me afraid. So the wall was finished on the 25th day of Elul in 52 days. And it happened when all our enemies heard of it, and all the nations round us saw these things, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was done by our God. Also in those days the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and the letters of Tobiah came to them. For many in Judah were pledged to him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, the son of Arah, and his son Jehohanan had married the daughter of Meshullam, the son of Berechiah. Also they reported his good deeds before me, and reported my words to him. Tobiah sent letters to frighten me. Sanballat has tried several times to lure Nehemiah away from Jerusalem in order to be able to kill him. Nehemiah has rebuffed him each time, saying that the work is too important. Sanballat then threatened him with a report to Artaxerxes that the rebuilding of the wall was simply a ruse meant to reestablish a Judean king, Nehemiah, and foment a rebellion against Persia. This threat they thought would scare Nehemiah, forcing him to come and answer the charges. Nehemiah was not scared, for not only did he know the truth, he knew that Artaxerxes knew the truth, because he was the cupbearer to Artaxerxes, so the two of them knew each other well. He basically is telling Sanballat, who do you think Artaxerxes is going to believe? You who have invented these things in your heart, knowing them to be untrue, or me, the one who was sent by Artaxerxes to complete this very task? Nehemiah also knew that his work was from God, and prayed to God that their hands would be strengthened so that they could finish the task that they started. Undeterred, Sanballat tried again. This time, though, he got even sneakier, for he hired a prophet, a false prophet, yes, but false prophets are only known by their words and deeds. This prophet told Nehemiah that his life was in danger, and that he should therefore flee to the house of God, meaning the holy place of the temple, and shut the doors, for there he would be safe. Shemaiah, this prophet, didn't reveal where he got this information from, but being a prophet, it is fairly safe to conclude that, since he chose the temple of God as the place of refuge, that he was implying that this information was from God. But there was one problem with that. For Numbers 18, verses 6 and 7, there we read, Behold, I myself have taken your brethren, the Levites, from among the children of Israel. They are a gift to you, given by the Lord, to do the work of the tabernacle of meeting. Therefore, you and your sons with you shall attend to your priesthood for everything at the altar and behind the veil, and you shall serve. I give your priesthood to you as a gift for a service. But the outsider who comes near shall be put to death. We have said in the past lessons that if something comes from God, then it is not sinful, because God does not tempt man to sin. However, when something appears to go against God's prior revealed word, there would be a sign from heaven that can prove that something was actually from God and that he approves. People often point to God being inconsistent with child sacrifice when he told Abraham to offer Isaac. We said back in our study of that chapter that while God was testing Abraham's faith, he was not tempting Abraham to sin there. The reason Abraham was going to follow through was because the voice came directly from heaven, meaning that it was from God. A prophet that came with an undeniable sign from the Lord would be able to confirm their message was from God, even though a person might have been skeptical based on God's past revealed word. That is why miraculous spiritual gifts were needed in the first century, because to the Jews, being taught that Jesus was the Son of God who died for their sins made it seem awfully like a prophet teaching them to go after other gods, contrary to Deuteronomy 13, verses 1 to 3. However, as we know, the apostles used the Old Testament to show that the Messiah was prophesied in their scriptures to be God. He was prophesied to come and pay the price for sin and rise again the third day. Those signs were used to show that what they were saying about Scripture was true. They weren't teaching Jews to go after other gods, but to worship the same God, the true God, Jehovah, as revealed in their scriptures. Here in Nehemiah wasn't a priest, and from all accounts wasn't even a Levite. Therefore, he had no right to enter the temple. The prophet who spoke came with no signs to prove that going into the temple was being commanded by God. So Nehemiah knew that he could not go against the direct commands of God in order to try and save his life, for in so doing he would sin and would likely lose his life at the hands of Sanballat. How? Well, first of all, sinning against the law in this way would have given Sanballat an opening to impugn Nehemiah's character before the Jews. Branding Nehemiah a lawbreaker would mean that he was not one to be followed, and thus his command to rebuild the wall would cease. Moreover, since the penalty for a non-Levite entering the temple was death, it is also quite likely that Sanballat would have convinced the Jewish leadership to execute the penalties of their law and put Nehemiah to death. Therefore, rather than saving his life, Nehemiah would lose it. Nehemiah saw right through this, though, and prayed to God that God remember the deeds of Tobiah and Sanballat, as well as the other prophets who spoke against the work of Nehemiah, and rendered judgment according to their deeds. Having staved off all the attempts to stop the rebuilding of the wall in just 52 days, on the 25th day of Elul, which corresponds to our mid-September, the wall of Jerusalem was complete. Now, many look at this feat and pronounce it impossible. Josephus likely did, which is why he said that the temple took 840 days to finish, or 2 years and 4 months. We must remember a couple of things about Josephus, though. First, he was not there, living over a full 5 centuries later. Second, his writings are not inspired of God and therefore not guaranteed to be accurate. And third, Josephus has been known to get numbers wrong in the past, which doesn't automatically make his work suspect, but it should give us pause to accept his telling of the story, especially since he was not there. If you read the entire narrative of Nehemiah, you see that it was not just one person working on the wall, but teams of people. With the exception of the Sabbath, they would have worked from dawn to dusk. Each team had a section of the wall, meaning that the work was being done concurrently and not consecutively. And then, except for a section of the eastern wall of Jerusalem, this wall wasn't being rebuilt from scratch. The foundations likely existed, though heavily damaged. Parts of the wall likely remained too, simply needing to be repaired and reconnected. Thus, the project, while large, was not as large as people might think, had the walls and the foundations need to be dug and the wall built from nothing but a hole. But even if all these things weren't true, this task was sent from God, and with God, all things are possible. I'm not saying that the rebuilding of this wall was a miracle, but if it was, it doesn't discount Scripture at all, for God did use the miraculous to accomplish his purpose. For the Jews, though, their faith in God is what carried them through. God blessed the work of their hands, and the wall was finally completed, much to the dismay of Sanballat and Tobiah. These two men had tried everything. They even tried making friends within the Jewish community to perhaps stop the project from within, for it seems there were some marriages between the nobles in Judea, and that opened such doors to Sanballat and Tobiah. All this failed. The will of God was completed, and Jerusalem was once again the city that God wanted it to be, with its temple standing, whereat the Jews could worship him properly according to the law. And the timing of the completion of the wall was important, for Elul was the 6th month of the year, with the 25th day of that month being at the end. This meant that the 7th month, containing the Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Tabernacles, was fast approaching. What better way to observe those feasts than with a newly completed wall in Jerusalem, with the temple city now fully protected? The book of Nehemiah is not over, for there are other issues that Nehemiah, as governor, has to deal with. We'll begin our look at those, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Nehemiah chapter 7, verses 1 to 73, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. We thank you for watching Walking Through the Bible today. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. But if you like this video, we ask that you consider subscribing to our channel so you won't miss out on other videos in our series, as well as share this video among your friends so that the saving message of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.